Welcome back, everybody, to the Breakthrough Moment podcast. Today's special guest is a good friend of mine, Alex Lambert. Alex, brother, thank you for joining us today.
My pleasure.
So we've actually known each other for over 5 years. We used to do collaborations, conscious business masterminds in Sydney. And I was super inspired by a lot of the work that you did in Sydney. I was like, I want to connect with this guy. This guy's awesome. But to give you guys a bit of a background on who Alex is, Alex's mission is actually supporting the rising consciousness of the planet. And he does this through his podcast, which is The Light Leaders. Now, get this, he's had over 200,000 views on YouTube alone. And for the last 5 years, he's actually created over 200 different episodes. So I'll link you his podcast around here to go check it out. And now, because of all this experience and been doing it for so long, he's now coaching other conscious leaders to create their own podcast. So if you guys are looking to create your own podcast, get in touch with Alex. But look, I'm super excited to dive into this with you, bro. And by the way, for those of you who are joining us for the very first time, the Breakthrough Moment podcast is around sharing successful entrepreneurs' breakthrough moment or moments throughout their career that they've had a massive breakthrough. And as we listen to their breakthroughs, it allows us to have a breakthrough at home as well within our own business. So without further ado, let's jump into it. Super curious to hear some of your biggest breakthroughs throughout your career, man.
Thank you, bro. Thank you. Do you want me to get started?
Let's dive into it.
So if I were to pick one, a recent one, actually, I'd love to share a breakthrough from 1 year ago. So I usually live in Bali, but right now I'm in Germany. I'm flying back on Monday. My partner is from Germany. We're visiting the families. And I was there last year also after an event in Ibiza in October. I was invited to that amazing New Earth community event, flying business class to support that project, and with really beautiful people. But in the end, just after that event, I actually stopped working with them because they didn't have the funds. And this was kind of the end of 2 or 3 years when I was working on creating the New Earth community with different types of currencies, different types of relating to each other, different approach to money. And we had that kind of utopian vision, but it was a little bit disconnected from reality, I believe. Or at least it was very optimistic. And so my breakthrough moment is me a year ago in Germany, realizing what I've been working on the past 2 or 3 years are beautiful projects, but aren't synchronized with the reality of our world now. It's like we were a little bit too early for our times. And that translated into things like not being attracted to working with the fiat money system when it still how the world operates today. And that led to us wanting to use alternative social media platform where actually they're not ready. And so at that moment, I thought, okay, I'm just going to simplify things. And instead of creating now a society with different money, different governance organization, different social media platforms, I'm going to simplify things and look at the world how it is right now and see how I can contribute best with that reality. And so I'm still in touch with people building those new paradigm society. I think it's needed, but I just felt that my role in it was, it wasn't aligned anymore. It was a little bit frustrating because it was a lot of things outside my control. And then I felt I couldn't really be my genius and doing the things I wanted to do, always waiting for the funding to come that was delayed, for the decentralized organization platform that say was going to be ready next week for a year, and going back into coaching, feeling I'm just going to learn, putting the work, help a few people, get them results, get income from that, and really go back to that entrepreneurial journey that I really like, where you lower the variables, you put in the work, you get the results, and you grow from that. So if I were to recap, it would really be
That's so
so if I were to recap, it would really be looking at where the world is at and not where I want it to be, and play with that. Versus a lot of people, especially in our conscious communities, they can be into truth seeking and conspiracy theories. And that's really good because we want to have our own view of the world, but sometimes they go a little bit too far in making projections. For example, people in the crypto community, they think the dollar is going to collapse next month and it's been 10 or 15 years. Now, I think they're right. It's going to collapse some point because it is a bit of a house of cards, but it's been very resilient. Same with people making predictions like Facebook. I had someone on my podcast. She was like, Facebook won't exist in 6 months. That was during the pandemic time. And it's still around. So I think it's good to understand where the world is going, do some truth seeking, but also I got humbled on my predictions and also the timelines, how long it takes.
interesting. Interesting. Yeah, I've seen you transform in many different ways over the last 5 years. In Sydney, man, you were creating so much magic, connecting with so many amazing entrepreneurs. I forgot to mention you created a book that had co-authors, right? The new Earth, the wave of getting out of the 9 to 5 and things like that. And then you kind of went to Bali and had this spiritual awakening and kind of doing all this stuff with crypto. I was like, wow, this is next level. And now we've kind of circled back together, and it's cool to see you've dived into a really cool niche that you're helping, I guess, leaders get their message out there more and make more impact. I'm super curious to know, like, for other entrepreneurs that might be going through their own breakthrough or their own realization of maybe their old self and transitioning into a new paradigm, which is kind of what you've done. Do you have any advice for other entrepreneurs who are looking to have a breakthrough in a similar way?
Mm. When I started in entrepreneurship, I had a lot of different interests and that kept going. And so I've actually evolved a lot from doing things like personal development coaching to MLMs to crypto to building communities to now coaching people on podcasting. And I think it's amazing to have a lot of interests. A lot of the light workers, conscious entrepreneurs style, they usually have a lot of interest and there's a process of discovery. And I think it's good to find a good balance between doing something we love and being consistent. There's a framework that I guess a lot of your viewers would know, which is the Ikigai framework, finding the meeting point between what you love doing, what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you get paid for. So that's a framework I've been playing a lot with in my discovery of what I want to do. And that's why I ended up on the podcast coaching for now. So it'd be to find that balance. And I don't have the exact answer of how much to definitely follow your heart and follow your passions. And at the same time, when we're talking business, to understand that it's good to be consistent. And that's something I've been lacking a little bit in the past 5, 6 years, to be honest. And every time you pivot, there are things to redo and to rebuild, which is exciting. It's life, but it's also not necessarily the most efficient business wise. So, for example, in my coaching, a year ago, I made the decision to become a coach. And I had some experience with it, but that's when I made that decision. Okay, I'm going to pause the community building work for now, and I'm going to be a coach. Of course, there's still some community building aspect, but that's how I labeled myself professionally. And I started to do health coaching and then coach people on purpose. And then I went into the podcast. And what I've tried to do during that discovery phase is to really find out what is it that I can do for the next 5 years. And when I was doing health coaching, I'm very passionate about people thriving on a raw vegan diet. And on my podcast, I've had most of the top leaders in that, and I'm pretty known in that community. So it felt like a low-hanging fruit. But after doing about 4 or 5 months coaching people on health, I realized that I was quite passionate about it, but it wasn't quite the same. And so I could have kept going. And most likely today, 6 months from now, I would probably be doing better with my coaching business if I had stayed in the health niche. But I think 3 or 4 years from now, it wouldn't work that well because I would become a little disinterested in it. And what I noticed when I coach people on health is that I would get especially excited if I knew they had an ambitious project, such as becoming a coach themselves and impacting many people, or having a podcast. And so I'm very happy that I pivoted early enough, thinking I want to do something for the next 5 years I'm passionate about and build on that, rather than having kept going on the health coaching. And probably then a few months from now, I would be like, well, that's not my highest passion. I need to pivot. But then I've spent a lot of time on something that was less aligned. So taking some time to really feel into what is it that you could do for the next 5 years is a really good piece of advice. And then, of course, to know that sometimes you need to try many different things. So there's also nothing wrong with trying these things, but to me, it's about finding that balance.
For sure. Yeah, the Ikigai is a great structure, and I think we evolve as we learn, and I think the world now more than ever is giving us information through social media and meeting more people and traveling, that we're evolving, just as fast or faster than ever. So it's interesting to kind of see each other's transformation. Even just in the last 12 months, we were joking about that, before the podcast, and how things are changing so much. But I think there's like a collective shift for many people, or definitely amongst our community. People are really elevating and evolving in a quite a fast way, I've seen. So I'm super curious, bro. If you could go back in time and go back before you started your entrepreneurial journey and change just one thing, what would that one thing be?
That's a hard question because I believe that the journey is the destination. So I don't really believe in changing anything. But knowing that it's perfectly imperfect, um, if I were to give advice to my younger self, as people often talk about in the podcast, there would be definitely the thing that I mentioned before, is taking even a bit more time sitting down and feeling into what I could do for 5 years. But I honestly think that I needed to have the experience to figure that out myself. And now at 34, having done all these experiences, I have a much clearer understanding of what I love, how I can serve, what the world needs, what I can get paid for. So that's one thing. I also really liked what you shared about, um, both of us changing things and following each other. And actually, we live in that age of information where there's a lot of different ways to live that are available, different ways to make money and create a business. And I'm so grateful to live at such a time. I know for yourself, and when I met you, you had that big YouTube channel, and I admired you for that, that had 15,000 views on how to make smoothies. And then we've done some MLMs together, and then like many things. And you've always also had these different interests. It's beautiful. And one other thing I think is important is avoiding shiny object syndrome. So I see a lot of people um, changing too fast. So again, here there's a balance, because there is a time when you want to change what you're doing because what you're doing is not aligned. But it's also easy to get a lot of different advice from trading coaches telling you trading is going to be so easy and you'll make a lot of money. MLM people telling you their MLM is the best. Coaches of coaches that tell you should be a coach and in 6 months you'll be super successful, and same with drop shipping and this and that. And so to me, it's like balancing those interests with at some point sticking to something and really try and make it work even when it gets hard. That's another thing. And yeah, that would be the main thing I'd tell myself. So try and find out what you like, want to do for 5 years, and don't just give up when it's hard, and change, and also give the thing really a chance, because sometimes people quit just before it gets successful. There's Alex Hormozy, he has this kind of curves he shows where you get an idea and you get really excited, so then your mood is like up, and then it gets hard and you're like, and you quit. But actually that's the moment when people keep going, it goes back up, and then they go to something else and they do the same. Yeah. So there's nothing wrong with having a lot of interest, but also when we think business, we can think we can cover also different aspects of ourselves in the long run. It doesn't have to be all in 2 years. So let's say someone like me, I'm passionate about helping leaders of the new earth, especially conscious leaders, have more impact in the world. And I believe podcasting is such a beautiful way to do it. So right now I'm focusing on this, but I'm also passionate about health. I'm also passionate about consciousness and people understanding who they are, and mental health. So maybe 10 years from now, 15 years from now, I'll be more a thought leader in consciousness. But it can be 10 years from now. It doesn't have to be all at the same time. So I would also tell my younger self to be more patient, and that all the beautiful things I want to create in the world, I can create them in blocks of 5 years rather than all of them in the next year. Yeah.
Great advice. Great advice for sure. Be patient, figure out what you want to do for 5 years, hone in on that, and understand there's going to be highs and lows. But if it's linked to an Ikigai, then there's a higher probability of it being successful. Yeah, because it takes time to build the momentum, and I think the first year of any business is going to be the most challenging. So if you can get through that first year and keep moving forward, then yeah, the 5 years is definitely possible as well. It's exciting. Yeah, where will I be in 5 years? Where will you be in 5 years? Well, it's such a great question, The world is changing so fast. It used to be 10-year visions, It used to be, now it's 5. Soon it'll be like 1-year vision. So the world's changing so quick. Look, you've interviewed 200 thought leaders and light workers and, leaders of the world. What has been your number one lesson or breakthrough after interviewing so many amazing people? Like you must have, I know what it's like. I learned so much from these podcasts, but you've interviewed so many. What's been the biggest aha or lesson or breakthrough from that experience?
I will go for doing something you're passionate about. I will go from knowing yourself, because often we look at other people as potential role models, which is fine, as inspiration, which is great. But ultimately, in the fabric of consciousness, our own individual selves are created because they're part of the perfection of the whole. And those differences are needed. So we are all unique. And that's why we're here, a unique expression of the divine. And so we have our own piece of the puzzle. And sometimes as humans, we forget that. We think all humans should be, why you should be an entrepreneur, why you should be a musician, why you should have kids, why you shouldn't have kids. And one day I was meditating in front of nature in Bali, which is beautiful and lush there. I'm like, the coconut tree doesn't tell the mango tree why it should be a coconut tree. And the mango tree doesn't tell the rose that it should be a tree because it's strong. It's all perfect. The rose is delicate, and the mango tree gives beautiful fruits and juicy fruits. And the oak tree doesn't give any fruit that we can eat. But should all oak trees become mango trees because it's nice to have mangoes? I don't think so. And humans is the same. So sometimes when we think everyone should be like this or should do this way, um, it's not like that. It's the beauty of life is that we all have our own uniqueness. And when you apply this to entrepreneurship, some people are meant to be coaches. Some people are meant to do network marketing. Some people are meant to be part of bigger teams. And so, yeah, rather than looking at what's working, it's like everything's working. Oh, what's the best way to make money? Is it trading? Is it being a coach? Is it being part of a startup? Well, the best way is your way, is the one that resonates with it. There's a very famous video by Steve Jobs, definitely a successful guy in many ways, who says, well, you got to do something you love because things are going to get hard. And when it gets hard, you got to love it. Otherwise, you're going to quit because you're not insane, right? If it gets hard and you don't like it, you stop. Makes sense. And that goes back to that curve that I shared about Alex Hormozy when it gets hard. So I do look at what the world needs. I do look at what's an industry that's trending. All these are valid, but I think for me, the key piece of the Ikigai is what I love. That's probably what I weigh the most in the equations.
Interesting. Yeah, for sure. Um, being around so many, I guess you would have met so many authors or, trainers and educators throughout your experience. And I know that you love books and you love learning and personal development. What would be your top books or top resources that you'd recommend every entrepreneur to start reading and learning?
My favorite book is A New Us by Eckhart Tolle. Also love The Power of Now. And I know this is not a business book, but to me, creating a business, again, back to the being passionate about, is going to work if it's you. I don't want you to create a business because you feel it's better to be an entrepreneur because people around you think it's the best. If you are an amazing artist, be an amazing artist. And I think we live in a world now that has awakened and where people can make a good income, um, being an authentic artist, being a writer, being a dancer, whatever lights you up. And so if you want to be a successful entrepreneur, and successful being not only making money, but also fulfilled while doing it, I think it's really important that you do it in a way that's authentic and that you know yourself. Going back to what I shared and what I learned a lot from the variety of people I've had on the podcast. So simply, this book, I feel, will just give you the perspective of who you are, how to create from joy and enthusiasm, how to sometimes take time away to really figure out what really resonates. And then that will help you build a successful business, one, because you'll like it and you'll be more fulfilled because it's authentic. If it's not, you will stop, and that's good, and do what's authentic to you. And also because building a business is a marathon. It is a long-term project. And this will, if you can maintain your awareness, your mental health as you do it, because entrepreneurship is potentially more challenging than other ways to make money. Well, if you can take care of your mind this way, you will be here in the long run. I believe more in self-care, taking some time to also prioritize the health, the relationships, the mental health, the things that bring you joy in life. So you keep doing it 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, rather than going too much into the hustle. But again, in the spirit of what I shared about the mango tree and the rose, some people are meant to be hustlers and they actually like it. So I'm also not saying that it's bad to be a hustler. Alex Hormozy seems to be very fulfilled, talking about working a lot. If that works for him, it's amazing. But I would just make sure what I'm doing is relatively sustainable. And I think, reading Eckhart Tolle is amazing, or this kind of spiritual teachings. Now, I'd also want to share that recently for business itself, I've looked at the training from Alex Hormozy on $1 million offer and leads. I think that's really good. I really enjoy Dan Coe, also YouTube channel. He talks a lot about building a one-person business and not necessarily having to niche. I think he has a really good understanding of how to create a business from a personal brand. And it's something that I'm doing myself. It's something I've been learning from DAN space KOE. That's his name. And I always have a lot of other inspirations, but I'll leave it there for now. How about you, bro? I'm curious.
Pardon me?
What's your top book?
Oh, talk books. Oh, okay. Good question. I love it when the questions come back. It's great. Of course, you're going to ask the questions, fellow podcaster. So the books that have changed my life the most, I really liked Russell Brunson's Expert Secrets.
Oh, I love this one too. Yeah. On business, it's like such a Bible. I love it. And it's been
for
a while
business.
ago, right? It was written like maybe 6 years ago, 5 years ago. And I think at the time, it's
Yeah.
been really a foundation for a lot of the modern day marketing. Were you also following Sam Ovens? Because now I'm using School, and I really like Sam Ovens.
Nice. I haven't read has he got books?
Doesn't have a book, but he has a lot of videos.
Yeah, okay. Wow. What a great success story he is. Far out. Super inspiring.
And Sam
Um,
Ovens, great example of someone that's so different. He's much more geeky. He doesn't take his health as seriously as I do. So it's someone I look at who I'm like, he's totally different than me, but I have a lot of appreciation for what he does. And I think for him, his lifetime, what he's doing is perfectly aligned for his unique self.
unique. So that's a good point. Yeah, I think the real key message, and I'd like to ask the next question, which is, what's the key message or the one key core message you like people to go away with today? But from me, it sounds like, yeah, by getting into your zone of genius is the most effective, efficient, fulfilling, um, thing we can do is getting into our zone of genius, whatever that is. And it's going to take time. It can take time. Not everyone's going to nail it straight away. Some people get to their 40s or 50s and still don't even know it. So it's part of that self-discovery. And I really like that you're talking about, honing in and maintaining your health. That's definitely something that we hold very. We have very different views on health, but we maintain our health at a high standard, regardless of the hustle, regardless of the busyness, and doing the work. So, I think that's an important reminder for entrepreneurs to make sure that yes, we can hustle. Yes, you want to be working and creating wealth and different things for a very long time. It's so important to maintain our health. So, yeah. So yeah, I'd love to know what would be the core message that you'd like people to take away from this podcast.
Thank you. I mean, we've talked a bit about finding what you're passionate about, but I want to add that to find what you're passionate about, as we already discussed a bit, you need to start, you need to try a lot of different things. And I was listening recently to a podcast with Chris Williamson, and he's talking about how to him, his perspective is in your 20s, you want to try a lot of things. And then in your 30s, you want to double down on what you found from your discovery in your 20s. And there's a lot of truth to that. So, of course, we want to reflect on what we love, but to do that, we need to try different things. And it's such a cliche advice for entrepreneurs, but it's so true, is just get started. You got to start, right? And there's so many things that hold us back. So, for example, when I coach people to start a podcast, things that people have usually is imposter syndrome, right? Who am I? And that can come from different limiting beliefs. But ultimately, a big win is just to start and to do it. And yeah, just starting is very important, taking those actions and not being paralyzed by perfectionism or just education. So that's one. And then the other one is for the maybe more spiritual people out there, or people who identify more as builders of the new earth, light bearers, light workers, light leaders, is that deep down when you remember where we came from. So we come from pure consciousness, and now we're incarnated in a body in this current timeline and physical realm. And we made a choice to be there. I believe that when we made that choice, we came here to experience, to enjoy, and we always need to keep that in mind. But for me, I also remember I came for the mission of bringing the new earth into manifestation. So when we look at our earth today, it's such a beautiful plane, and we can really enjoy, but there's also a lot of things that to me don't resonate. Of course, wars, some kind of abuse, the way we treat nature, animals, each other. And to these people who remember, like me, why we came here, let's just not be in the way of ourselves and be too shy about it. Let's just do what we came here to do, have fun with it. Part of it is speaking our truth. In the world of today, again, going back to my realization, in the world of today, social media is huge. It has huge influences on people, whether you like it or not. I used to not like it. That was part of it. And my breakthrough, I was like, Instagram, Facebook, I'm done with it. They're censoring me. YouTube, they're part of, cabal, whatever. And, yeah, they're censoring, they're capturing people's attention, watch the social dilemma, all this stuff. It's what people use. And so let's just get on with it. So even if we don't like social media, for the people who resonate with it and are like, I want to share a message, let's have a podcast. Let's have deep conversations like this on YouTube and inspire people, because that's what we came here to do. So just remembering from a higher perspective who we are, what we came here to do. And then all these little resistances of the ego, the imposter syndrome and all this, they're still there, it's fine, but they're much easier to overcome.
Well
Oh,
said.
one
Well
thing I'd love
said.
to add,
100%. Interesting. Yeah.
also regarding podcasting, one thing I'm very grateful for is AI. So right now, using softwares like the one we're using now, Riverside, you can record in super high quality. You can have scenes that shift automatically. You can have clips created by AI with subtitles. And basically, the piece of work we're creating right now would have taken many hours of editing, of creating clips, even 2 or 3 years ago. I used to pay a VA $1,000 a month to do these things. And people watching this episode might think, whoa, that must be so much work. But actually, AI makes it so much easier to have amazing quality content and promote it.
For sure. Yeah. That's actually my next question is like, as the world is changing so much with AI literally disrupting every industry and so many parts of the world. And apparently Amazon laid off like hundreds of thousands of staff because of the new robotics and AI. You know, this is quite disruptive. What do you see as the predictions or bold predictions for the future with AI? Are you optimistic? Are you pessimistic?
Yeah, I'm pretty optimistic because I believe that we create our reality with our consciousness. So it can get a little bit metaphysical, but we don't live in one world. Every consciousness creates its own world. So some people will go on a timeline that's more dystopian because that's what they focus on their reality on. And Bashar, Dolores Cannon, they talk about this work really well. And some people, they will go into a version of us where AI is supporting us and doing the things that we don't like to do. And evolution is part of life. It's not like you grow or you stop growing. It's like you grow and you evolve or you die. And so it's part of the game that we when we came here, we wanted those change, those evolution. And so it's part of our power to choose what we focus on. Personally, I align with the timeline of AI supporting us and creating new possibilities that we're excited about.
That's a good way to look at it. I like that. I like that for sure. Um, let's jump on that timeline. Yes, please. So I want to ask one more powerful question, and then I'd love you to introduce, you know, how people can get in touch and who you help with the podcast and things like that. So my last question is, if you could challenge the audience and really suggest or push them in a certain way or inspire them in a certain way, what's the one action or challenge you'd like to impart to all the listeners today?
Okay, if you're up for the challenge, take 20 minutes and do nothing but meditate, close your eyes, and feel into your purpose and feel into potentially something that you know would excite you that you've been wanting to do and that you've postponed. And you can write it down during your meditation. So it could be starting a podcast, in which case a step could be send me a DM. It could be to start your business, in which case it could be to send Zac a DM. It could be to take more care of your health. And the next step could be to just subscribe to a gym. So basically feel into what's one thing that you really feel you want to do and write down just the next step and do it. Like you can write down a few next steps, but just do the first one. And so if you need to get in shape, maybe it's like getting a program. Maybe it's maybe it's just subscribing to the gym. Do that one action. Yeah, that's my little challenge for the listeners. Take 20 minutes, sit down, feel into what's coming in that place of calmness to you that you feel is the next thing to do, and take action on it. And sometimes, usually the advice you give to others is good advice for yourself. So I sometimes forget to do as much of the meditation that I like to do. So I'll probably do that myself just after the call. That's the challenge to myself.
Well said. That's funny. Yeah, I've started meditating more. Here in Copenhagen, there's the gym that has a sauna, and I'm the only person that goes first thing in the morning. It's like opens at 8 o'clock, but I'm still the first person there. This place, like everyone wakes up and does stuff later. So it's nice to do some breath work and some meditation in the sauna and things like that. It's been just a good reminder to sit in silence with how busy and noisy life can be for me. I'm like, it's been really powerful to keep my groundedness throughout the day even more. It's been awesome. It's a great one. So yeah, look, there's going to be listeners out there who are looking to create a podcast. How do you help them? How can they get in touch with you? What are the next steps for them?
Yeah, a lot of people get paralyzed because they think it's they overcomplicate it. But again, also thanks to AI, it got even more simple to do a really high quality podcast with something like I usually ask 5 hours a week from people. And then from the moment we work together, I can guarantee you'll have your first episode out within 30 days and you can have your first 10 episodes out in the first 90 days, all high quality. If you wanted to have guests, how to land those great guests. And a lot of people, there's a statistic which is 90% of podcasts, they don't reach episode 10 because people get overwhelmed. They don't have the right tools, systems. But on top of that, there's even more podcasts that never got created. So many people think I want to start a podcast, and 2, 3 years later, they still haven't started. So I help people with that and make it step by step, super simple. And if you feel I can support you with that, just send me a DM on Instagram, on Telegram. We can put the link in the description. And on both, it's at Alex E. Lember. And just DM me podcast. And then I'll have a few questions to see if it's aligned. And then we can jump on a call and explore more.
There you have it, guys. Seriously, I couldn't agree more. The technology and the ability to create a lot of output in a short period of time, if you know the right things to do, because podcasting can be super overwhelming and so many moving parts. And, what if you don't click the record button? And, there's a lot of tick boxes that need to happen. So yeah, everyone at home, if you're wanting to start a podcast, reach out to Alex. I'll put his links around the video here. Any final comments, man, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, just want to send a lot of gratitude to you, Zach. We've been on an entrepreneurial journey where we've crossed paths for a while, and very grateful that you invite me here. And I'm also really grateful for everyone who took some of their precious time. We usually say it's the most precious resource you have is your time and attention, and put it into listening to this 40-minute conversation. So I want to send a lot of gratitude to you, to the people listening, also to the technology that allows us to broadcast our voices to the other parts of the world. It is true magic. So much gratitude for that, and really sending a lot of love to you and everyone listening.
Amazing. Thanks for joining us. We'll have to do it again soon. Maybe I'll join your podcast when I come to Bali.
We love that.